Live. I'm still going to whisper for like the next 10 seconds because StreamYard, you guys, they just like to make everything loud right out of the gate. But welcome to CASAA Live, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I see a lot of familiar faces out in chat. Bill, John Haymaker, Chris, Mr. Fa Q. Oh, no, this is just Mr. Q. I believe you changed your name. I don't know if Mr. Fa Q is still here. Adrian, Ian, Victor, welcome everybody. Christy, Skip is here. Hello. Ern, good to see everyone here today. Thanks for joining us on this lovely Saturday. It is Saturday, right? I hope it's Saturday. We're in the wrong place.
You see Breeze Tones out there too.
Oh, yes. Adam, Breeze Tones, welcome. Thanks for being here. We have a familiar face to you with us today. We do have a special guest with us today, everyone. We have Dr. Colin Mendelsohn joining us today. We're going to be talking a lot about Straya, and that's Australia for everyone else, and all the regulations, rules, things that differ between the U.S. and here, and policy and tobacco harm reduction and all the good things. We're going to have a big discussion about all that very soon. We'll be bringing Colin in very shortly. At the end of the hour here, Alex is going to have some legislation for us this week. What do we have on the docket this week, Alex? What are we going to be talking about?
It's still kind of same old. We've got Hawaii and Alaska and Washington County, Oregon, and a brief update on Connecticut.
Cool. Well, I guess nothing new is not really a bad thing. So we'll just keep on the recap train that we've been riding for a while now. I guess with that, do you want to do a quick little round of hey, how are you? Hey, how are you, Kristin?
I'm good.
Good.
Is that quick enough?
Alex, hey, how are you?
I'm good. It's warming up. It's almost springtime here.
It is. Oh, it is springtime here. It is springtime. I am up to my eyeballs in springtime. So Jim would be proud of how quick that round of hey, how are yous just went. So without any further ado.
Wait, question? What? Oh, he's kidding.
Oh, you got one more?
No. I was saying you're about to be pushing it. You're pushing your luck here.
I see. All right. Well, without any further ado, let's get right into it and bring Colin in here. What do you say?
Do it.
Do the thing. Roll the bean footage.
All right.
Dr. Colin Mendelsohn, welcome to CASAA Live. Thanks for joining us this week.
Logan, thank you so much for the honor of the invitation, and hi, Alex and Kristin.
Howdy.
Now I have to ask you though. Hey, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm going back to bed after this. It's a little early on Sunday morning, but otherwise I'm fine. Thank you.
For those who don't know,
early for the show, you put on a button up, you got all ready to go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've got a shirt on, but I won't tell you what's below that.
This is the secret of YouTube: is no one wears pants. That's the secret of YouTube.
I have pants on.
True.
I will let you know that.
Okay. Well, Kristin is 1 in a million. I have pants on too.
Yes, but it's 6:30 in the morning in Sydney right now, folks who are watching in the US. So he got up super duper early just for us today on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
You're in the future. Yeah.
I'm telling you, the future's not good when you get here. I'm warning you. It doesn't get any better.
Well, I'm hoping that I don't even see Sunday morning at 6:30. I'm hoping that I'm still quick asleep by then.
Yeah, I hope so.
But all right, I guess right out of the gate, Colin. I know a lot of folks here in chat already know you, already know who you are. But for all of us and for all of YouTube and Facebook and everywhere, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got into all of this?
Yeah, sure. Look, I was a GP, a family physician for nearly 30 years, and I've always had a special interest in smoking. I mean, preventative medicine, I think, is just so important. We treat lung cancer, but if you can prevent it, of course, you're way ahead. Mm. And so I developed an interest in smoking, and in the last 7 or 8 years, I work exclusively in that field. I'm a member of the committee that develops the Australian guidelines. and I was an associate professor in the School of Public Health and Community Medicine at the University of New South Wales. I've never smoked or vaped. Fortunately, my father did, and my father-in-law did, and they both died from smoking.
Mhm.
So, I'm very, very familiar with the harm smoking does. But helping smokers quit has been a very difficult area to work in. And the quit rates are extremely low. Even in the best clinical trials, after about 12 months, less than 10% of smokers have still quit. So when vaping came on the scene, I mean, I was blown away. I did the research and I saw it in my practice. People were quitting, people who often had tried and failed to quit with other treatments, and suddenly they were telling me, well, this gives me what I got from smoking. It gives me the hand to mouth, the sensory effects, the social aspects of smoking, but without the toxins. And so I became, increasingly a supporter as I saw that it was working. And several of us, Alex Wodak, Joe Kostarich, and I started the Australian Tobacco Harm Reduction Health Promotion Charity to raise awareness of vaping and other forms of tobacco harm reduction. And that's been running for several years. I naively thought that if you just present the evidence about vaping, which is very straightforward, I think, then to the public and to the policymakers, well, people will embrace this as a wonderful opportunity to address what's still our biggest preventable health problem. But of course, there are many hidden motives, as you know, behind the scenes. There's all the politics and the ideology and the vested interests, the moral judgments about people using an addictive drug. There's the financial issues. We don't have an MSA over here, but we make a lot of money from tobacco taxes. And so, the opposition has been extraordinary in Australia in spite of that. And that's one reason I wrote the book that I've written recently, to answer some of that misinformation that's out there, to present the evidence. And also naively thinking that might make a difference to policymakers and anti-vaping people, but it's as you know, it's a long, slow battle.
Yeah, we were all there in the beginning too. We understand that whole naivety of thinking, oh, they just have to get the facts. It's just they just don't know, and then when they do know, it doesn't change anything, and then you have to wonder what's going on here. How could you still look at all the stuff I'm looking at and not get it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. And what I've discovered, certainly through my work, and you're probably aware of this, is that they present certain narratives about vaping, which are kind of appealing, like, oh, all the kids are vaping, and we don't know in 30 years' time what's going to happen. It's just the big tobacco companies, and everyone hates them. But what's really going on is behind the scenes. So you can't even argue with those issues, because even though the evidence is so strong, what's behind it is, we think people should just quit altogether, or it's politically too risky, or we don't want to lose the money, or we don't want to lose our jobs. They have vested interests, and I think, and you can't really argue directly with that stuff, and yet that's what's going on.
And you mentioned your book, Alex. You want to bring that up? I just put the link. Oh, he's not going to do the screen. He's got your book, it looks like, so he's just going to pull it up.
Yay! Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Alex.
And
glad to see it.
We will put a link to that in the description, and I just put it in the chat as well. And what would you say? Is this more of a history? Would you tell our audience, is this more of a history of the story of it, or is it just an advice book for people who smoke? Or is it both?
Well, look, can I show you a slide? I mean, I'll do the advertisement first, then we'll get that out of the way. So
sure.
If you can show you, if I can show you that slide, that first slide. So basically it's a book for smokers, vapers, health professionals, and policymakers. So it's actually quite comprehensive. It's very evidence-based. It outlines all the evidence for vaping based on the research. prices are there. It's available as an ebook. You can buy it on Amazon. It's printed in the US. You can buy it, and there's more information on that link. And on the next page, it just shows, yes, basically it looks at the evidence for vaping. So is it, what is the evidence for safety? Does it work? It looks at the myths about nicotine, which are unfortunately underpinning a lot of the opposition. Then there's a section about a transition, how to transition from smoking to vaping. So what do you actually need to do? Because I think it's quite overwhelming for a lot of new vapors. So it outlines, the devices available, the types of nicotine.
And I think, I don't know if, I don't know if your section gets into this, but I did see Alex Wodak had posted, it was probably about a month or so ago, another thing for people to kind of be aware of is what we experience when we transition from smoking to vaping. And by, everybody sort of talks about how it makes your mouth dry, or you might wake up with a sore throat if you didn't drink enough water, and some other things so I don't know if you added that in there as well, but
yeah. No, we've got all the pros and cons are listed. And the overall public health impact, of course, from all of that is positive. But and the third part is all about the controversy. So why is vaping opposed in the US and in Australia? What are the real reasons behind the scenes? And then how best to regulate it, in my opinion, what's going to work to give it the most public health effect. And there's all sorts of other issues like people's autonomy to use something that harms no one else, the whole human rights issue and social justice issue, and how the regulation and what the future is and what people can do. So it's kind of, there's something for everyone in there. And final slide. This is just a review from Neil Benowitz. So he's the American guru and the nicotine guru. And I think basically it's basically saying yes, look, this is evidence-based, and I think it's a practical guide for non-smokers who want to find out more and make a switch. So that's the end of the advertisement. Thank you for the opportunity to make people aware of that.
All right. So
yeah, that's fantastic. I saw someone in chat I was looking for, and I couldn't find it again. Refer to it as the Bible, basically. That's just fantastic. So
does it make me divine in some way?
In some way, in the world of THR, yes, absolutely.
Maybe that's
one person has claimed to be a vape god, so you wouldn't be the first. Although I did see somebody saying that they might get that and put it in their vape shops. They're asking if they could put it in their vape shops. So
I actually think it's an excellent idea to have at least one copy as a display model copy in the vape shop, because people come in, I'm sure you get this in the US, and say, well, but hang on, I've heard that this causes popcorn lung, or I've heard this causes EVALI. And yes, they mightn't believe the vape shop expert, but you can say, well, here's a book, here are the references, and this is what the experts, or some of them, are saying anyway.
Yeah, and we never know in the US what they're going to count as being making therapeutic claims, because I know in some cases you couldn't even say it doesn't contain tar. Oh, that's a therapeutic claim. Wait, what? Huh? Nope, can't say that. It's like, what?
Well, yes, I mean you can, but that's why you can show the book and say, well, this is one perspective based on evidence, without necessarily making a claim. So I think it has a role there. But
absolutely, I agree. I think they should. It's just like with some companies and shops and stuff on their website would just have a link to a page or a study that said something, and they made them take those down. So it's
really? Wow.
Oh yeah, it's crazy what they'll go after over here. You never know.
Yeah.
On the topic of therapeutic claims and kind of regulation in general, how does some of Australians' regulation of vapor products differ from, say, the UK or New Zealand? Or us here in the United States?
Look, we have the most restrictive regulations in the Western world in Australia. So we're the only country which requires a prescription to possess or use or import nicotine liquid. So it's a de facto prohibition because most people don't get a prescription. People don't want to be told what to do when they can go and buy a packet of cigarettes on any street corner. But there's almost universal opposition to vaping in Australia. Our 9 health departments are opposed. Our medicines regulator, our peak health body, the National Health and Medical Research Council, are opposed. Most of the health charities and medical organisations, even the medical organisations of doctors, are opposed to vaping. And one of the problems that creates is it's very hard to get a nicotine prescription because doctors are constantly getting negative messages about vaping from the Cancer Council, the Heart Foundation. And so, and because the health authorities are opposed, they're reluctant to recommend it because there are medico-legal issues then for them. So, and we only have very basic regulatory standards, which is a big disappointment. We should have something better for quality and safety and so on. They use the same arguments that they use in the US. So they use the youth vaping epidemic, big tobacco, the unknown health risks. All those same arguments are used as in the US. So
would you
we
say
have one organisation that supports vaping, and that's the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists, because they get their patients better and then they die from smoking, and they strongly support it. Our College of GPs is very half-hearted, but that's about as much support as we get.
I was going to ask about the regulations. I think I stumbled upon, was it the TG 110 or TGA 110? And I was actually kind of surprised. You mentioned it, that the sort of product standards are very minimal. I think there was sort of like 3 points, and a lot of it was, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, common sense stuff. I remember correctly. And the interesting thing was, of course, and I think I don't know if it's the only country where this is the case, but if you get a PMTA through the US FDA, then you're automatically okay to sell in Australia. And so I'm kind of wondering, with a product actually making it through that, has that changed anybody's feelings at all about vaping?
Not at all. No, not at all. No. And there are huge fines it's a criminal offence to have nicotine in Australia without a prescription. If you import it without a prescription, the fine is up to 220,000 Australian dollars. 165,000 US. Look, it's not being enforced, but they keep threatening. That's the current legislation that allows that. But look, we look across the Tasman to our New Zealand cousins, and we're really envious because in New Zealand they've taken this really progressive approach, which allows adults ready access to high quality products with good regulatory model. They restrict access for youth and enforce that. They educate people. They have government websites, and in fact, I'll show you in a moment, but they have government websites which encourage vaping, and they're having fantastic results already. And if I can show you that current slide I've got up here. So this slide shows you what's happening in New Zealand lately. They passed legislation just over a year ago, making vaping more accessible and legal. And you can see the latest smoking rate in adults has gone down to the vaping rate's gone down to 10.9%. In the US, you're doing better than us, but in Australia, of course, we've sort of pretty much flattened out. Although we haven't got recent figures, but the New Zealand model is working, and it's very similar to what they're doing in the UK, and it's something that we should all be doing. They're not seeing the problems that we're having in Australia. So,
and it's working in the US too, but only by accident, it seems like. In spite of what the government is trying to do.
And that's in spite of all the opposition. Imagine if they actually encouraged vaping in the US. Imagine if there wasn't all that resistance and the US government actually supported and encouraged vaping. We really have a huge opportunity here. So I think those models.
One real quick question. When you say nicotine you can't get without a prescription, is that just vapor products, or does that include gums, patches, lozenges? Those are all prescription as well?
Yeah, no, nicotine is a dangerous poison in Australia unless it comes prepared and packed for smoking. So if it's for smoking, it's not a poison, and you can buy it over the counter. Patches and gum and lozenges you can also buy over the counter. It's only in vaping that you can't buy it. So that's even crazier. And 12-year-olds can go to the corner store and buy patches and gums. So this toxic poison that's terribly dangerous to young people, they're allowed to buy that legally as long as it's not with vaping.
I mean, yeah,
And
that
no
shows
one
how even
stops to
more.
question that like dichotomy. No one even bats an eye at that.
We ask that all the time.
I mean,
It's
that
just
really
crazy.
does show how crazy it is. Because if you don't
And
realize
it shows,
that everything else except for vapor products, you can just go buy it, and I'm going to pop this.
And it shows you. It also shows you that it's they allow the least effective forms of nicotine to help people quit, but not the most effective. And we know vaping works better than the other options. But you know what worries me is in the US, there is such opposition based on youth vaping, and I think the recent developments are really going to undermine what we can already see is quite good recent progress there. I mean, smoking rates are falling faster in the US than they are in Australia, but the opposition currently is just going to undermine that. It's crazy.
We do have one question from the chat. Philip asks, Australia's anti-THR tobacco harm reduction politics have always seemed particularly inflexible, which is really something. What would you say motivated Greg Hunt to take such an oppressive stance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in our federal parliament, there's actually quite a bit of support for vaping. In fact, I met 2 MPs this morning. There's not current election campaign, and my local MP and another member, the Minister for Small Business, both support vaping. And they said that what we knew, which is that there's a lot of support in Parliament, but Greg Hunt, our health minister, strongly opposes it. Now, he's fortunately retiring in a month, and there is a new incoming health minister if that party is elected. Why Greg Hunt, and she supports vaping as far as we can tell, but why Greg Hunt opposes it, we don't know. He's been getting all the usual advice. I think there's a lot of political implications. If a health minister comes out and says, oh, we're going to support vaping, and the Cancer Council and the Australian Medical Association and the TGA all say, oh, no, you can't do that, there's going to be a huge political pushback. And I think that's a large part of it. But I think he's misinformed, and I think he's getting misinformation from his advisors. I think he's probably got good intentions, but yeah, I think it's crazy that the opposition is so persistent.
You are getting a lot of questions in this chat, more so than I normally get every in other weeks. So excuse me for trying to catch up here. Skip asked one, are products like snus and nicotine pouches legal in Australia?
Well, snus you can bring into us, you can import, you can't sell it in Australia, but it because it's a tobacco product, it comes in with enormous and prohibitive taxes. It's a moist product, so it's heavy, and so the taxes, it's like over $1,000 a kilogram. So yeah, people do import it in various ways. Nicotine pouches aren't legal, no.
And some of you guys, some of your questions will be answered in some later things that we're getting into. So I'm going to hold off on some of those then.
Okay. Yeah.
Where were we at?
How much of that, that I guess kind of misinformation swell in Australia is, in your opinion, influenced by us here in the US? Because I'm a firm believer that the biggest export of the United States is unfortunately misinformation.
Yeah, no, you're right. What happens is in Australia that when our policymakers and authorities talk about vaping, they always refer to the US. So they never talk about the UK. So, they cherry pick the evidence to say, oh, but in the US, there's this terrible youth epidemic and there's all these problems caused by vaping, but they never say, oh, but in the UK, actually, they've actually managed it very well, and they're positioning it as an effective adult quitting aid. There's hardly any take up by kids. I mean, they don't compare. So basically, they just pick the worst possible scenario. So thank you very much for that. That's unfortunately having a big influence in Australia, where normally we would, normally the Americans do things well, and but it's cherry picked. so we don't get the benefit of other. And New Zealand and the UK, both of them are really quoted by Australian experts.
Yeah.
But why? Why? I mean, you'd think the UK, I mean, doesn't Australia really have kind of a tight or a close link with the UK with a lot of things? I mean, the royalty still goes and visits there and things like that. You'd think that would be, forget those Americans. The UK knows where it's at, but no, they decide
you're being too logical here, Kristin. And the other thing is that in Australia, our fourth biggest tax is tobacco tax. We have the highest prices of cigarettes in the world. So the Treasury would lose, well, last year it was about $15 billion, which is our fourth biggest tax. So after company tax, GST, and income tax, it's number 4. That would leave a big hole in the Treasury. But the politicians like to be seen to be tough on smoking and tough on the tobacco companies and protecting the children. And so there's a lot of political advantage in opposing vaping. So it's for all the wrong reasons. And people, as we know, people should just quit. They shouldn't be using an addictive drug like nicotine, which is killing everyone. So, there's all this other nonsense going on. And so they pick the evidence to support what they've already decided.
Yeah, and it's so horrible that it's addicting kids for life, but adults should just quit because it's so easy to quit. We did see a question earlier, and that kind of goes into what you were saying about that. Or I don't know if it was a question or comment, but about the black market, because I see lots of articles coming out of Australia and even New Zealand about a huge tobacco black market. And that same thing you'd think was going to happen with vaping.
Yeah, well, we've got a huge black market because it's so hard for most people to get nicotine vaping products legally. Very few doctors will prescribe them. It's just so easy to keep smoking. And so what's turned up on the market is these sorts of unregulated vaping products from China. So the kids are buying these products. So gun pods, HQDs, QVs. These are just disposable 5% nicotine vaping products. Now, you can buy those anywhere. You can buy them from convenience stores, tobacconists, on social media, and they have high levels of nicotine, and they're not regulated. So they come from China. We don't know what's in them, and no one's bothered to test them. And the sale isn't being enforced. Now, the one good thing is that there are adults who are trying these products and finding, wow, vaping works. And then I see them and I say, well, actually, that's not a good way to do it. Why don't we try something that is regulated? So that just goes to show ready access does help people to quit. But unfortunately, the kids are using them, and they're very high nicotine. There's a higher risk. It's like Juul. There's a higher risk of addiction, although that's overrated.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the opposition's weaponized this against vaping, and they're saying, oh, but all the kids are vaping, but they're not doing anything about it. And they're using that to say, oh, well, we have to ban vaping. But of course, it's the ban that's created this problem. If they regulated vaping properly, in a comprehensive way, and enforced the sales with proper, with licensing of retailers and penalties and loss of license, they could deal with this. But we all know prohibition doesn't work, and the black market, if there's a demand and people find it hard to get something, the black market will help out. And the black market doesn't respect age of sale. They're not concerned about the quality of products. And that's why we've got EVALI, of course. If you don't make it easy for people to have what they want, they're going to find other ways and do more harm. And the criminal gangs step in, and we all know what happens.
Well, and that's just it, is that many of the articles I've read wasn't even about the vapor black market. It was about the cigarette black market because of the high taxes and how expensive it is to smoke there. And that both New Zealand and Australia have huge cigarette black markets. And that's the thing, is if you know you have a huge cigarette black market problem because of your policies, do you really think and then they just say, well, this is not going to create a problem for vaping black market. No, it's like, but how are you completely ignoring the fact that it is causing you a black market problem with your cigarettes? So you have an example right there.
Exactly. And there is a huge black market, and they're very distressed about that because they're losing tax. And so they have the border force, enforcing this and shutting down farms that make tobacco. You can't grow it in Australia. They're doing raids on tobacconists and so on. But of course, that's only a drop in the ocean. But it's not really working. But of course, they are concerned because they're losing income tax. And of course, if they allowed a vaping industry, they would make obviously a lot more money from that. As it happens now, what most people do is they buy from New Zealand. So all the money is going to New Zealand. And a lot of the vape retailers have set up in New Zealand and they sell it back to Australia. So all the money's going to New Zealand. People are still getting their vaping products. And you know, obviously we could do it much better.
Yeah. But regarding the teens thing, though, are you seeing any, like in the US, they keep saying there's this gateway and that kids are going to, you know, teens are going to get addicted to Juul because it's so high in nicotine. And then, which is again questionable. But we're not seeing that. We're not seeing all these kids who were supposedly getting addicted for life on Juul. As they're getting into the older grades, we're seeing vaping going down. We're not seeing seeing the teens. So even with this high nicotine and all these flavors, none of these teens, you know, a lot of these teens that we think that who do go on to smoke or who do stick with the vaping, in the absence of vaping, would have been smoking.
Exactly.
So that's what the point of, okay, we get rid of all this vapor products. What do they think all these teens are gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, so what the evidence is showing, and there've been a whole lot of studies recently, is that vaping is actually diverting kids away from smoking. So yes, kids are trying vaping, and mostly it's experimental, and most of them are smokers anyway, or they were to start with. And most kids who start vaping in the US, at least 80% of them were smokers to start with. So for them, it's arguably a good thing. But the evidence from a number of studies, certainly in the US and in other countries, is that vaping is actually diverting these kids away from smoking. Some might try vaping, maybe never would have smoked, and then go on to smoke. But many more are actually going to vaping and not going on to smoking. And in the US, there was a study done by Robert West and Martin Jarvis and I think Jamie Brown, and they found that less than 4% of kids who vaped had symptoms of dependence on nicotine. And the Royal College of Physicians recently said, we can't see any evidence of a significant addiction problem. So these arguments are not grounded in science.
No.
And I think vaping overall is actually, you know, I can't say kids should be allowed to vape, but I can say that the evidence shows that it's not doing them any great harm.
If they do, yeah, because all this panic over flavors and all this panic over high nicotine, and neither one of those things really are causing anything. It's not causing more smoking, and it's not causing more vaping. So, especially, are they tracking that in Australia? The youth vaping and youth smoking? No, just make claims about it.
Yeah, that's right. I've just got a slide up at the moment. If you might like to show this one here, which I think is really important. I mean, this is a slide I make. I'm like Danielle Jones. I love making graphs.
Danielle loves that.
Yeah, I sometimes talk to Danielle about that. But this is data from the National Youth Tobacco Survey, and it shows that in the blue line, the smoking rates in high schoolers, past 30-day smoking rates, were slowly declining until 2013, when vaping became popular. And after 2013, the smoking rate amongst high schoolers fell. It was 40% faster than when vaping became popular. And now 1.9%, I'm sure you know this, of high schoolers smoked in the last 30 days. Less than 0.5% smoke daily. I mean, smoking is almost gone in kids.
Yeah.
I wonder if vaping has anything to do with that. I mean, you know, you can see on the red line the rate of vaping in the US in kids, and how it's dropped 60% in the last 2 years. And you can't explain that by, you know, how are kids addicted to nicotine? They can all stop if they want to, and they are.
Right.
And that probably will continue. I think it's been a bit of a fad. And like you said, Danielle, earlier, kids just are trying these things. And it's something new, and they try it, so the numbers go up, but then they stop them. And we're seeing it is a bit of a fad, and I expect that trend will continue. So I think vaping overall has been very beneficial to public health and smoking rates.
Yeah, we can't disagree with you, but they just seem to want to absolutely ignore that and believe the hysteria rather than what's actually happening.
I mean, it's amazing. You know, looking at 1.9% of young people smoking, it's hard not to think along the lines of we are on the precipice of a smoke-free generation in the United States. And it's you know, they have achieved the goal. I mean, we're down below 5% to begin with, and now we're watching kids who know. Kids know, they get this. They don't want to smoke. They know it's harmful to their health. It's going to hold them back. And it just, you know, looking at this number, it's like within a couple of years, there's going to be a graduating class that just doesn't have any interest in cigarettes and probably not nicotine.
Yeah, and this is the the argument against vaping, that kids are going to become smokers. Where in fact it's going in the opposite direction, and the evidence, you know, that's CDC data. It's official and very clear. So, you know, it's really criminal, I think, and unethical, unscientific that they just ignore that and continue with their narrative. You know, people don't change their minds easily.
They just created a different problem. Instead of it being a smoking problem, it turned into a tobacco problem, and now they have to turn it into a nicotine problem, so they can lump all the vaping and everything in there. So now the rates jump back up again, and it's a nicotine problem. We can't have people, but they still push that the reason nicotine use is bad is because it will inevitably lead to smoking.
Yeah, which it doesn't, and in itself, it's relatively benign. I mean, as we know, nicotine's not the toxic chemical in tobacco, and its health effects in the doses we're using are very small. And there's a lot of good evidence now that we're not worried about. Nicotine is just a mild recreational stimulant with some positive and very useful effects. You know, it does improve concentration and memory, and keeps your weight down, helps with mood and anxiety, and it's great for people with schizophrenia and ADHD. There's lots of benefits.
I'd really like to carry on that point right there really quick, because we're starting to see campaigns here in the US arguing that nicotine and vapor products are actually causing you know, or leading to or exacerbating mental illnesses like anxiety and depression and things like that. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, I think this is just a desperate argument to demonize nicotine. You know, the evidence shows very clearly that nicotine reduces anxiety. It improves mood in the short term. It improves concentration and memory. They say, oh, the kids, they can't concentrate and it's affecting their schooling. In fact, it's actually good for cognition. It does help with the focus, helps short-term memory, fine motor skills. There's good evidence for that. When you separate it from all the poisons in tobacco, people with schizophrenia who have cognitive deficits, if you give them nicotine, they really improve. And they tell you this. If they stop smoking, one of the reasons they smoke so heavily is to get that nicotine. ADHD in kids, if you've got ADHD as a kid, you're much more likely to smoke because you're getting the stimulant effect of nicotine, like you would from Ritalin. And it works. And I've had many patients tell me that's helped them with their ADHD. It helps to prevent Parkinson's disease. It's good for ulcerative colitis. There are lots of benefits for kids and adults. Now, I'm not saying people should start using nicotine for those conditions, but if you're a smoker who's switching, you know, there are benefits that you will get.
I think there's an interesting angle to that and one of the first times I heard anybody talking about nicotine and ADHD was a mom who was in a booth next to me at a trade show in Detroit. And she had her own e-liquid company, and they were there, of course, you know, selling their products. And we got to talking, and she pointed over at her son, who was 16 years old, and she said he was on, you know, really heavy medication for attention deficit disorder, and he didn't like it, and it didn't make him feel good. It wasn't necessarily helping. It was a little bit too much, and so he tried vaping, and he was able to discontinue using the medications, which are expensive and very powerful. And he's, you know, he's able to function normally. He's you know, he's having a decent time in school. And so I think, you know, yeah, there is that tendency, I think, to say like, no, we're not encouraging any nicotine naive people to take these products up. But I kind of I have to wonder, you know, is there an argument there for people using a mild stimulant like nicotine in lieu of paying hundreds of dollars a month for some sort of heavy medication?
Yeah, and with fewer side effects. Now, look, there is, and I think there is research on the use of nicotine in these conditions. We need more, but you know, it's hard to get that research done because we know how poisonous nicotine is, and there's this
and addictive and horrible.
Yeah, it's shocking. So you know, it's hard to get studies done to show that nicotine is helpful, but the research so far is very supportive, and I think your story is very typical. I hear that all the time. I have patients who said just that they've stopped their Ritalin, and because they found that nicotine worked better and they didn't have the side effects they were having before. It's very common, and they function much better. It improves their life.
2 of my kids have ADHD. One is also autistic, and she does fine on the medication, very, very low dose. And she's only 15, so obviously she's not going to be using any kind of nicotine products. But my older son, he's in his mid-20s, late 20s now, and he's always found that the medications just did not. They made him feel foggy and not good at all. And I mean, stimulants tend to help, you know, and
they do.
But nicotine's this weird balance of it's both a calming thing and a stimulant, and it works very strange that way.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting, but you know, you don't have to use vaping. You can use lozenges, of course, for nicotine. So I mean, which is actually better because they're purer and they haven't got the other ingredients. Not that the other ingredients are terribly harmful, but that's another alternative for people.
Well, my son was smoking. He was in the restaurant industry, so he did switch from smoking. So we're good with that. But we do have one question about actually with nicotine in there. Philip's asking again, in general, would you say your patients who quit smoking using vapor products exhibit less acute nicotine dependency relative to when they were still smoking cigarettes?
Oh, yes. Well, there's good research to support that. There's a whole lot of studies that show that, you know, when you measure nicotine dependence by withdrawal symptoms, by various questionnaires, by just patient self-assessment, that nicotine addiction is less, nicotine dependence is less. And that's because there are chemicals in tobacco smoke that enhance the addiction of nicotine, which are the monoamine oxidase inhibitors mainly, and others. But also nicotine is delivered more quickly from a cigarette, and it's that speed of delivery that enhances the addiction. So there's lots of reasons why, but there's no question that people find it easier to quit vaping when the time comes, if they choose to, than they do from smoking because of all that. And there are a lot more behavioral rituals associated with smoking that make it harder to give up. You still have some with vaping, but less. So yes, it's definitely a less addictive behavior.
And like you said, it's not just the nicotine. I mean, they always want to blame the nicotine, but I know, and this is a story our audience is very familiar with, is my husband and I both switched to vaping at the same time. Once I got a flavor I liked, I was good to go. I was fine. I was a hand mouth person. That's my thing. So it doesn't really matter if I have high nicotine or low nicotine. I vape the same amount. So I do low nicotine because I don't get get a little it can make you a little sometimes nauseous or something if you get a little too much. But anyway, my husband, no matter what we did, we had super high levels of nicotine. He was a menthol smoker, so we put a ton of menthol in it. We tried all these things, and he just felt something was missing, and he couldn't give up the smoking. And once he started using snus, which is going to have some of those other nicotine-like things, the other alkaloids in it, fine. He was able to give up the cigarettes because it was those alkaloids. So this whole idea that it's just the nicotine that people are dependent on is a myth. And I think that also that's a thing that the anti-tobacco people have been pushing all along, is that it's not that it's giving you any benefit. You're just trying to feed the addiction. And they just completely deny that we're getting any benefit out of it all. And the only reason we want it is because we're addicted, which of course doesn't explain why we kept going back to it before we were addicted, because we weren't addicted from the first one we had. So clearly there was a reason we went, that's nice,
It's enjoyable, and people should be allowed to enjoy themselves if they're not harming anyone else. So that's one reason people do it. But you mentioned the level of nicotine in your device.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really matter how much nicotine you have in the device. So what your brain will, but your brain will titrate. Your brain will say, well, that's enough for me. So if you're using a strong nicotine product, your brain will say, well, after a few puffs, that's enough. I'm feeling a bit nauseous, or it's giving me what I want. If you're using a low strength product, you'll use it more until your receptors say, hang on, we've got enough now. So it doesn't actually matter.
I'm kind of the exception to that rule, and I have a feeling there's other people. The only reason I know this is because I buy the same size bottle every time. And if I got a bottle of 3 milligram, it would take me a week to use it up. If I got a bottle of 6 milligram, it would take me a week to use it up. So I was going through the same amount in the same time period, but with higher nicotine. And I realized it was because I'm doing this. And so it's like, and I wonder why I was like not being able to sleep as well at night, or I was feeling a little jittery, or I'd get a little nauseous. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to lower my nicotine, because one of the reasons is I went and I bought higher nicotine thinking because liquid was starting to get really expensive now because of all the taxes and the shipping costs and stuff. And so I would go to a higher strength thinking, oh, I'll vape less liquid. I'll go through less liquid, spend less money. And then that way with the higher nicotine, and it didn't work out that way. I don't go through just as much. So for some people, it's that hand mouth. It's the blowing.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. They're the two main categories. When I assess a smoker for vaping or a vapor, some people don't need the nicotine. So for them, and maybe you don't need the nicotine at all, or maybe a little bit helps you.
I've gone to zero. That didn't work either.
No, a lot of people say that. But for others, it's just the hand to mouth and the sensory and the social aspects, and that's all they need. So it is very individual. But for most people who need nicotine, there is a certain daily dose that they need to satisfy their receptors. And it's a matter of working that out.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, that's the case. But I think I'm just one of those weird, and I still need my 3 milligram. If I try to, and I've done 0 because I've had to for insurance purposes for like a week or so. And it's super easy, compared to if I just had to quit cold turkey smoking or whatever for 3 weeks, doing it to 0. But still by the end of that time period, I'm like, okay, I've got my nicotine back. It's a little bit better. There is one.
People enjoy their nicotine. It does have beneficial effects. So
and I don't
if
have
it's
to
not harming you.
I don't have to take antidepressants like my mom did, Neff is asking, well, he's making a comment, but kind of a question saying, I hear it's as safe as caffeine as far as nicotine, but I've never seen any evidence to back that up. I hope it's true because it's a nice comparison. Do you believe it's as safe as nicotine?
Yeah.
Look, or as caffeine? Sorry.
It's caffeine. Look, yes, I haven't seen a lot of evidence. The Royal Society for Public Health in the UK says it's no worse than caffeine. So there are small effects of nicotine, but biologically it does put your blood pressure and your pulse up a little bit briefly. It does increase the risk of having an irregular heartbeat in people who have heart disease. It does have an effect on blood sugar levels. But look, to be honest, they're really very mild. And I think it's very similar to caffeine. There aren't major concerns about using nicotine at the doses that we're talking about. So, no, I haven't seen a lot of comparisons. I mean, I've certainly read repeat reports of experts saying it's no different. More people are addicted to caffeine than they are to nicotine, not addicted, dependent on caffeine globally than they are to nicotine. And there was an article by Carl Fagerstrom about that. He was looking at popular dependence forming drugs. And he said, well, caffeine is the most widely used dependence forming drug in the world, and no one's worried about that. But nicotine, which is very similar, everyone jumps up and down about. And really, yes, I think there are very small differences.
Other than the delivery system. If we had been smoking tea, we'd be having an epidemic of heart disease and stuff from the smoke from tea. It's just the delivery system.
Exactly.
Sure. And we glorify caffeine though. You know, how many people do you see with coffee mugs that say, you know, don't talk to me without my first cup of coffee, or you know, coffee shops and corporations have you know, kind of capitalized on this glorification of this need for caffeine. Never in my life have I seen a coffee mug or a lighter or something that said don't talk to me before my nicotine or something like that. I just find that kind of dichotomy of these two molecules that are essentially so similar in the way our bodies treat them and react to them. They're both very, you know, kind of short acting, dependence forming, mild central nervous stimulants. But yet one we have that is so widely globally accepted.
Yeah.
And then we have one that is so demonized.
Yes.
And I think
and
Chris
it's been
makes a
like
really
that.
good point. Had we been, you know, smoking tea or I don't know, boofing coffee beans or something like that, it would have been a whole different argument there.
Yeah.
Well, look at moms with their glasses of wine. Everybody thinks it's just so cute.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Nicotine's been demonized for decades, and it's still misunderstood by lay people and by medical experts. I mean, there was that recent study in the US that found that over 80% of doctors strongly felt that nicotine causes cancer, heart disease, and lung disease. I mean, we've just developed this perception about nicotine because it's been associated with smoking, and it's collected all the negative views based on that, when actually it's just one small part and a relatively benign part.
And now I think they're intentionally doing it because they know with smoking going down that they need another villain, and now they're reinforcing that. And so even with things like the very low nicotine cigarettes, people are like, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea because nicotine's so bad." You know?
I mean,
I'm sorry, Alex, you were starting to say something.
Yeah, well, a couple things, and I may be changing the subject moving along here, but also that 80% of clinicians, I think, or doctors believing that nicotine causes cancer, I think that's gone up. The first time I had heard kind of a shocking number about doctors that believe nicotine causes cancer was at FDLI in DC, and I think Mitch Zeller actually had talked about this, and that this is a huge problem and we need to correct these misperceptions. I think it was like 40 or 60% at that point, which is obviously still a very shocking number. But if we're up to 80 now, that we are obviously going in the wrong direction.
I don't think so. I think that's actually the other way around, because I did see a study from February that said 80%. And then the one that just came out last week that she did that was talking about how physicians whose patients talk to them are more likely to go on to recommend them. That number's down to 60 now. But only 22% of physicians actually recommend vaping.
That study was for people. When people ask their doctor about it, then they're willing to do something. But when you survey them about, is it risky?
No, that survey had that in it too. That had that in it too. It said the doctor's survey actually said, they asked multiple questions, like, do you think it do you think it causes cancer? Do you tell your patients about it? But I can send you the link. It's
I know.
It's actually in our last newsletter. It's a new study that just came out, and they asked, what's her name, Kristin?
Del Nevo.
Yeah. Her most recent one asked all those questions. She talked about all that stuff.
Yeah, but it's still a huge problem. I mean, even that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And amongst lay people, it's also very widespread. And look, that's been a problem for so long. I remember writing an article about 16 years ago with several other doctors about nicotine, and which basically said, does it cause all these problems? And we decided, no, it doesn't cause cancer, and it's relatively benign, and it doesn't cause all the problems that people are saying it does. It's been demonized, and popular views are not based on evidence, and that hasn't changed, or maybe it's got worse, or hopefully recently better, but still very bad.
Did you say 80% believe all tobacco products are equally harmful, or that nicotine causes cancer?
Nicotine. It was about nicotine. Okay, nicotine causes cancer.
Okay, so maybe 80% still believe nicotine, because it's 60% of doctors say that all tobacco products are equally harmful.
Oh,
so I was the one who
right. Yes.
My apologies.
Yes, yeah.
I just wanted to get that out there.
But before it gets lost in chat, I said I was going to change the subject here, so I am sort of getting back to that. Philip Kirschberg brings up a bit of research that was recently published. Dr. Carl Phillips and Mariwa Glover published a paper, and I hope you've had a chance to read this or look at it, Colin. But we are moving into kind of talking about the research here in Australia. But essentially, I don't want to give the spoiler, but we really should talk about it because I think this is a pretty important study. That what they are looking at was the effect of sort of the initial shock of our Surgeon General's report in 1964, which of course was 2 years after the Royal College of Physicians put their report out. But that initial shock of this new information that smoking is very harmful for you has actually been the only thing that has reduced smoking prevalence since. And that maybe I think maybe with the exception of taxation, which does have an effect on people's buying habits, things get more expensive, people buy less of them. But other than that, all of these campaigns, all of the policies, all of this stuff has really not moved the needle a bit, and it's really just generation after generation passing the information along. Smoking is really bad for you, and you should avoid it. And again, it was sort of looking at the lines. I'll put the graph back up here. Or no, that was a different slide that you had. But comparing the U.S., New Zealand, and Australia, we have these. Australia has kind of a flat line. I'm sort of curious about in Australia, does Australia have its own version of our Surgeon General's report from the 60s or 70s where the public was suddenly shocked and there was a steep decline in smoking and a greater awareness of the harms?
No, we didn't have an equivalent report like that. We relied on the Royal College of Physicians report and on the Surgeon General report, and we sort of accepted that. And yeah, we've had various studies ever since then. I mean, the most recent study in 2015 from a major survey group in Australia found that up to 2 in 3 Australians die from smoking, from long-term smoking, who smoke, up to 2 in 3 long-term smokers, and that the average life expectancy is 10 years less. So in Australian data, we have that, but there's been no extensive report until this latest one from the Australian National University.
And I guess leading into kind of the topic du jour, which is this ANU report. Before we get into that, I am personally concerned of that sort of similar effect happening in the opposite direction, where we get these reports, and in the pre-show you compared this. Actually, you answered one of my questions: is this on the level of what we have here in the States of the NASM, the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine? And so reports like that, again, there's that bit of, it's not really a shock to people because people sort of suspect that these things are bad, but there's a lot of concern, and Kristin pointed this out as something that will reverberate across the world, this ANU report. And so I don't know if I have a question here, or maybe you agree that this is something that could cause sort of the opposite effect for public health and people misaligning their perceptions and not choosing safer products.
Well, so what we're talking about is a report by the National Centre for Epidemiology and Public Health at the Australian National University. Now, this was published just a couple of weeks ago. It was commissioned by the Department of Health, which is anti-vaping. Now, the problem with this is that when this was first commissioned, there were no terms of reference given. And people actually asked the minister, what are the terms of reference for this report? So what are you actually looking for? And the minister basically said in Parliament, well, there were no terms of reference. So basically what they've done is said, here's $750,000, do us a report on vaping. Now, they may have given instructions, and we don't know what they were, and we've actually asked for freedom of information to find out what their brief was. But what came out was basically a review of all the harms of vaping. Basically, they focused on, well, when someone vapes, what are the bad things that can happen? And the report fundamentally looks just at that. It also gathers together data about uptake of vaping by young people, smoking cessation from vaping. But so the big flaw with this report is there's no relative risk assessment. So in other words, yes, vaping caused someone to have a cough, but not, well, but if someone stopped smoking, their cough went away. And there was no assessment of the overall or net public health impact of vaping. So, to the public, if vaping replaces smoking, what health benefits will we see? So, that it was a complete waste of time as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't answer the questions that we need answered. It looked at heart disease, the research on heart disease, lung disease, cancer, and basically said, oh, look, there's no real evidence that it improves these conditions. Now, when you look at the toxicology of vapor from smoke compared to smoke, or when you look at the studies so far that have been done, the preclinical studies in laboratories and the studies in humans, there are clear benefits to people who make that switch for all those conditions. But they just ignored all that positive evidence. And I see what you've got up there is a slide by a report from The Guardian. This was actually done by an epidemiologist, and it actually wasn't too bad. He's a doctor from Australia and does do opinion pieces for The Guardian, and it actually was a reasonably balanced article. And he basically says, look, if you switch this to vaping, yes, of course it's better for you, but we're worried about what happens if you start up as a vapor, because there are all these issues. And if you're not already smoking, of course, you're taking on extra problems. So I think that was one of the better articles on vaping in Australia based on that report. It was the only relatively positive one. So what happened when this report came out was that there was a media blitz. So there were articles in every media source. There was a shocking piece in The Conversation, which even misrepresented it further. And it was very hard to get any response published. We had responses rejected. The media's gone to town with this ANU report and has kind of taken their messaging and basically said, well, look at all the harms from vaping. Isn't this terrible?
Yeah, what a lot of good for public health that does.
Yeah. I think if I can tell you a little bit more about the report, for example, there was a report and a meta-analysis on smoking cessation, and they concluded that there's limited evidence that vaping is more effective than nicotine replacement. They did a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials, and they just based it on that, and they looked at some other randomized controlled trials, but they kind of downplayed the Cochrane review, which I think gives fairly good evidence now, moderate evidence, and of a significant effect. But what's most important is they didn't, what we call now, triangulate all the data. So in other words, they looked at randomized controlled trials, but they didn't consider all the evidence from observational studies, population studies, the dramatic decline in smoking in national smoking rates, the user experience, the anecdotes. And when you consider all that data, you get a very different picture. And as experts like Marcus Manafo says, who's the editor of Nicotine and Tobacco Research, to make an assessment, you really need to look at all the evidence, because some evidence has certain benefits and disadvantages, but different types of evidence have different ways of looking at things, consider different effects and different advantages. And when you bring it all together, you get a much more accurate picture, which gives you more confidence in the result. And when you bring all that together and you use all the other good evidence, the real world studies, as well as the randomized controlled trials, clearly vaping is effective.
That's what I was just going to say is, clinical trials and RCTs can really kind of help us focus in on nuanced parts of this whole debate, this whole issue, but they don't always reflect, or vice versa, the real world effect of things.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, it definitely makes sense that when we pool all of this data, that we see a different picture than just what
they didn't do that. They didn't do that at all. They didn't look at any of the other evidence. They gave it no credibility. And just last week, there was a paper published in Addiction by an Australian author, which of course got absolutely no publicity. But basically, they took our national survey data from 2019, which is our largest and official survey study on vaping, it's on smoking, and they found that with 1,600 smokers, if you asked them who had tried to quit in the last 12 months, and that was about half of smokers, so people want to quit, those who tried vaping had twice the quit rate of those who had not tried vaping. So, I mean, this is Australian evidence. It fits with what we see in the US and the UK. People who try to use vaping daily have much higher quit rates because they're probably the serious ones who are trying to quit. But clearly the evidence is there. And the people the best quit rates, interestingly, were those who combined vaping with a smoke-free app and a vaping app. They had triple the quit rates compared to people who used neither. So an app like Smoke Free, which is based in the UK, which is well researched and validated, if you use an app like that with vaping, you've got an even better chance. But vaping was more effective than varenicline, NRT in this study. And of course, that wasn't. That has just come out, to be fair, but it's typical of the sorts of population studies we're seeing.
If I remember correctly, it actually worked better. Vaping still worked best on its own, but worked even better with the app, whereas the app by itself didn't really do anything. So it was almost like, the app was the icing on the cake, but if you took the app by itself, it didn't really do much good unless you had the vaping along with it. That might have been a previous study. I don't know.
I'm not sure about that, but certainly the app and the vaping was the most effective method.
Was the most effective.
I mean, there was the study from the UK by the National Institute of something or other. I can't remember the name, but it's the government organization. Anyway, they analyzed 171 randomized controlled trials of all the medications, and they pulled them together and did what's called a network analysis, where you can compare different studies that don't individually compare one product to another. But they found that vaping was the most effective monotherapy. So in all the trials that have been done, vaping works better than varenicline, NRT, and bupropion. So, I think to be arguing that vaping is not effective is absurd. And we know the success rates with traditional treatments are very low. We know that about 8% of people, there was a meta-analysis by Laura Rosen from the US, who looked at all the studies, and she found that overall there was an 8% success rate from the randomized controlled trials, so the clinical studies in a controlled environment. So that's why we need vaping. We need something that works better.
Sure, and I want to re-highlight here what Neff said, just to kind of, I guess, piggyback off of, vaping along with the app. A lot of folks who have quit with vaping say the exact same thing Neff here said. What really did it for me was vaping plus community. And, although, maybe the sense of community isn't as formal as a quit smoking app, it is that social support, that peer support, that group support, that sense of community that encourages people, that I'm a huge believer in this community. And it's really, I think that's one of the things we're losing a lot as these regulations go forward. At least, in my personal experience, the vape shop was my first vape community. That was the first place that I would go spend a lot of time in and have that support, see other people, hear other success stories, get that encouragement. And, here in the US, we're definitely losing a lot of vape shops. And Australia, I'm assuming that sense of community, in-person community, has got to be suffering as well.
Yes, it is. Look, the vape industry is struggling at the moment. One of the reasons is the disposables. So people are buying disposables and they're not buying. They're coming into vape shops saying, "I want to buy a nicotine disposable. Do you have them?" And they get dozens of these people a day, and they're not buying the regular vaping products. There's also been COVID, so there's been less foot traffic, and all the restrictions based on the prescription. So yes, vape shops are struggling, and it would be a disaster if we lost the vape shops because, as you say, they provide a great service. They give emotional support, encouragement. They validate vaping, and we need them to support people.
Yeah, I hear from time to time, across Twitter or whatever, vape shops aren't doing anything. All they do is sell products and that's it. And I know through personal experience and the community at large knows through personal experience that a vape shop is so much more than just a retail location. Like you said, it very much is a service to the community. That the people inside are going to welcome you in and help you embrace this transition and this change and this switch to something much safer for you. And that was my first community was, a vape shop just 2 blocks up the road from me, which unfortunately, due to all these restrictions and COVID and everything else, has since closed, which is just a knife through the heart. But yeah, I mean, that was really truly what did it for me. And it was, I was able to go down. I mean, when I first switched, it was almost a daily thing for me to visit the vape shop and talk about things and kind of talk shop, troubleshoot different products, find the things that I enjoyed and that sense of community there and the stories that I would hear. I would walk in and there would be, a 70-year-old woman who had quit smoking 2 years ago with these products and stuff like that. And it was just mind blowing to me at the time. And the more I heard, the more I saw, the more I was there, the more it reinforced that I was doing the right thing.
Yeah. And vape shop owners almost exclusively are former smokers who have just been blown away by their experience and they want to share it with other people. Yeah. It's very different to most commercial models.
Yeah. This idea that, vaping is just this big tobacco ploy.
Yeah.
That it's just incumbent tobacco companies that run the whole thing. And it's really just the worst false narrative. That we could have.
It's just one of these it's just one of these reasons that's used to block vaping because everyone hates big tobacco, but the real reasons are different, and it's very hard to argue against, of course, although you can if you have the evidence.
Now, I have a question for you before we move along. I can see Alex like eyeballing me right now. But, we had a discussion a while ago here about incumbent tobacco companies and their involvement in harm reduction, in helping to, find solutions or to solve the issues that, they are largely responsible for as far as, smoking deaths and public health is concerned. Are you a believer that incumbent tobacco companies do have a role to play in tobacco harm reduction, or if they should be shunned and set to the sideline and ostracized as they've been?
I hate tobacco companies as much as anyone. But if they make a product that helps people to quit, I don't care who makes it if it saves someone's life, even if they make money from it. But they make a lot more money from cigarettes, and really they've been forced into harm reduction. They didn't want to go there.
It's not an ethical choice. It's a market.
Yeah, that's right. It's as Derek Yak wrote recently. This is a commercial decision. They're not doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. But look, from a public health point of view, it's obviously still the right thing to do, and our goals align with theirs on that issue. Their biggest problem is finding a big enough wheelbarrow to get their money to the bank. That's when you make cigarettes, a packet of cigarettes in the US they make for 30 cents, fully packaged and ready to go. They don't want to go into vaping. They make much more money. They're losing money from vaping. So, but they've been forced into it, or they'll just lose all their customers and lose their business.
Yeah.
And they are diversifying. And PMI now, 30% of their profits are derived from reduced risk products. So they are transitioning, PMI especially, and BAT also, less Imperial, and Altria. But they are transitioning, and I think that's a good thing. They can't just stop making tobacco. Everyone says, oh, they should, if they really care, they should stop making cigarettes. They can't do that. They have shareholders, they have legal obligations. And I think what anti-vaping people are doing is supporting big tobacco by blocking their transition, and they're encouraging smoking. So they'll go back to making cigarettes if vaping is not available, and it's ridiculous.
Sort of in the same vein of this discussion, I don't know. I don't think I'm putting you on the spot, but here in the States, we have a lot of, first of all, the blame game is being played, and leveling the blame for the manufactured youth vaping crisis at Juul and closed system products and the high nicotine pods. And one of the compromises that we have seen crop up in state legislatures is this idea that vapor products should be prohibited from sale in convenience stores and gas stations, and only allowed in adult-only establishments, which would be vape shops, or on the off chance that there's a vaping vending machine in a bar, that would be, those would be the only places you'll find it. So I'm curious, is the discussion in Australia going that direction of saying that vapor products should only be sold in adult-only establishments? And also, yourself, what do you think is the best way to do this? Is it necessary that we have vapor products right next to cigarettes in the same places where they're sold?
Yeah, look, I think vaping products should be available at least as accessible as cigarettes. So I think they should be sold anywhere where age restrictions can be verified and enforced. So I can't see why they can't be sold in tobacconists, and I think that's a good thing, because smokers will go in and they'll see the cigarettes, they'll see the vaping. That's where your target market is going to be. So yeah, I think they should be sold in tobacconists, pharmacies, anywhere they sell cigarettes. I mean, cigarettes are far more dangerous, and we give them a lot more of a free rein. And I think we need to make vaping products as easily accessible. Now, I don't know that most people wouldn't agree with that in Australia, and they want to restrict vaping products. But, I think the fact that cigarettes are easier to buy when it's far more dangerous is absurd, and we need to correct that balance.
I think part of the problem is, as you and Logan were talking, I was scrolling through one of the articles that I had come across about that report out of Australia that was not so good, and it was from ABC, and I'll share that link in the chat. But that one, and I don't know if you noticed when I was going through it, but it was basically the you probably saw this one. And I mean, it had all the classics. I mean, it had formaldehyde, heavy metals, poses a serious risk, global review. Let's see, nicotine, key ingredient, and one of the most addictive substances known. Young smokers who vape 3 times are likely to take up smoking. I mean, it had every trope, every cliche, I mean, everything you can think of that. And this is what I saw that, and then down here it talks about, I forget who this guy was, but he says that we shouldn't be putting together policy based on piecemeal things. That where is that now? Right here. He said it was important that health policy be made on the basis of large, comprehensive reviews like this, and not piecemeal evidence. And that's the thing that got me thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to treat this just like it was, the Cochrane or Health England doing a review. Because, I mean, if you go through it, and that's the one that I saw shared the most. Now, I wasn't too thrilled with the Guardian one either, but that's the one I saw shared the most, and the one that made me go, okay, people are going to see this and go, oh, this is perfect. We're going to use this everywhere. I don't care if it's from out of Australia. And sure enough, it's been spreading. So, and they even talk about volley in it. I mean, everything.
Yeah. Look, we have heard reports from other countries that are saying, look, this will be a useful update to NASM, the NASM report. So that was now several years ago. This is an official Australian report. We can use this as our reference. And other countries are talking about that. And that's what I'm worried about. But, I mean, you mentioned a couple of the issues. They say here that there's conclusive evidence that e-cigarettes can cause EVALI. I mean, that is absurd. They say that there's conclusive evidence that e-cigarettes cause seizures, which is absurd. They say there's strong evidence that vaping is a gateway for youth. That's absurd.
It was so awful.
It's so awful. And because the government commissioned this report and it's from a respected university department, unfortunately, people are going to say, well, you know, what would Kristin know? Professor Banks has said this, and she's an expert. So, you know, that's why this is so bad, and that's why we are writing a critique of this report with the evidence. But, you know, getting that published is another matter. It's very hard. The medical journals in Australia won't touch it. So we're going to look at ways to get this published to challenge some of this. The adolescent brain. Here's another one. You know, nicotine harms the adolescent brain, produces cognitive harm and memory problems, when really that's only in rodents. And if I can just show you one of my slides, this one here,
sure.
If you want to just show up this slide now.
Oh.
Yeah, I think one thing that's very clear is that mice should not vape.
Yep.
We know from the research that it is harmful, but there is no evidence in humans that vaping nicotine is harmful to the human adolescent brain, and to extrapolate from mice to humans is entirely speculative. And often those sorts of preclinical studies are quite wrong when you come to humans. And there's no evidence from the millions and hundreds of millions of people who smoked that later in life they get, you know, brain problems or cognitive problems compared to people who didn't smoke. So,
right.
You know, there's no epidemiological evidence, but if you're a mouse, the evidence is very clear.
Did you actually see the cover of our blog post this week? Actually has our version of that one, which is I can show it to you.
Okay.
You're gonna laugh because it's very similar. I gotta find it though first.
I'm gonna get there before you.
You might.
Ooh, it's a race. It's a rat race. Ba-doom-ts.
I have the.
No, that wasn't good. All right. Well, I tried. Did my best here, guys.
Mine's taken now. Do you have it, Alex?
I think yeah, I'm there. Hold on.
Okay. You pull yours
up. Put it up on my other monitor.
This is our version. I've kept this because I just love it.
Yeah.
You got it?
There you go.
But I'm not a people.
But I'm not a people. Yeah. Exactly.
What do you
think? And there is a lot of research to show that these preclinical findings in mice do not translate to people. You know, in these studies, they often use high doses, chronic doses over a long period of time, and mice are more sensitive to nicotine. We know that than humans. So to draw that conclusion, it's a long bow. And that recent article by Balfour and Warner that you'd know about, the SRNT presidents, I mean, their argument was that this is purely speculative. You can't draw that conclusion.
There's also just so many issues with rodent studies in general. Just given, you know, the problems with these rodents that are you know, prone to cancers and prone to diseases that are inbred, that are you know, all sorts of issues. And then when, you know, we you know, pump their cages full of vapor and we you know, burn heating elements and all of these things. And then we say, look how conclusive the evidence is, you know, and it's really just it's really just it's really just awful in general.
Yeah.
And it doesn't paint any kind of a clear picture.
No,
you know.
it's very misleading. But the anti-vaping brigade lap it up, and they get away with it because there's at some level there's a lot of support for that.
Well, when your paper comes out, we'll be sure to share it far and wide through CASAA, and I'm sure Danielle will put it up on our website as well. But you mentioned before you're hoping that consumers might step up a little more in Australia. Sort of our ending question, I think, today was talking about what can consumers do? What can we do to help people like you? What can we do to help ourselves, both in Australia and around the world? What would you like to see happen?
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, this is a political issue. And I think we need to, the consumers need to make their voice heard to the policymakers. So
we vote.
Yeah, we vote, exactly. And I think every vapor needs to contact their local congressman in your country and say, look, this is a really important to me, and here is an issue to me, and here is my story. I think that the media is hostile to vaping. I think we need to, whenever there's an opportunity, to go on to talkback radio, write letters to the editor, and through the media spread the message. And I think groups like CASAA and the trade industry in organisations need to be really active and smart about the way that they do it in terms of strategy and in government relations and policy, reaching out to the policymakers. So yeah, I think we can't even argue about the evidence because they just don't. It just goes nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think what counts is, am I going to be voted in at the next election? I remember when the president of the American Taxpayers Association, I just can't think of his name.
Grover Norquist.
Grover was out here in Australia, and he said to us that we talked to him about this, and he said, look, when we reach a critical mass of enough voters, then who vape, then we will get an impact. He reckoned 20 million, which is still a fair way off, but there are lots of voters and families and friends of vapers who would make that number up. But the more vapers there are, and look, it's just growing. You can't stop it. Even in Australia, every vapor I speak to says, "Yeah, look, my brother now vapes," or my friends, I've talked them into vaping, and it's just work, so people do it, and the numbers will increase, and there'll be a point where they can't ignore it anymore.
I think that's one of the things that
back in the bottle.
Yeah, that's one of the things that CASAA, we've said many times, is that one of our goals was just to keep things going long enough to get enough vapors that exist that you can't deny it anymore. And I think we are to that point. We've gotten, I got an email CASAA did the other day of somebody who was in panic and said, what's going to happen, and vaping's going to go away. We should stop telling people about what's happening. We should keep this a secret so they don't take it away from us. And it's like, well, it's a little late for that. So, but we have to keep fighting. But at this point, vaping's not going anywhere. It's just a matter of keeping it accessible and affordable and appealing to people.
Yeah.
But we have a huge fight. I saw that campaign for tobacco-free kids just in, I think, Colorado alone, or was it Denver? I forget where it was. Spent almost I think it was $180,000 and had 10 lobbyists just in this one, for this one bill. And I thought, we don't even have that for a year, for our entire election, it seems like, so it's funny because what we're going up against, we have to use our voice because we don't have the money.
Yeah,
so we have to do it that way.
I've got a great quote in my book, which I might just read to you. It says, the Nobel Prize winning physicist Max Planck made the following depressing observation. He said, a new scientific truth doesn't triumph by convincing its opponents and making them see the light, but rather because its opponents eventually die and a new generation grows up that's familiar with it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So that is depressing,
so
but being realistic, you're not going
to outlive the opposition.
Matt Myers is not going to suddenly come round and see the light.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, dying off saves them from having to, backpedal and justify all the years of.
Exactly.
It is kind of a good way to turn all of this on the opposition's head, because they kind of just want all of us to die off. But we know that vaping is going to far outlive all of them as well. So I guess there's some some karma on our side there, or something along those
out of the
lines.
bottle. Hey, we've outlasted, like, Glance is now retired, and what's his face from the FDA, he's not going to be gone, So I mean, slowly but surely, we're just gonna outlast them.
If we live long enough, we may yet see vaping become acceptable.
And you mentioned in Australia that there's possibly a consumer group that might be sort of.
Yeah, there is a group forming, and it's going slowly, and I'm not sure what's happened to it recently, but we realize we need one. We don't have a trade group in Australia, so you just don't have that lobbying power like the Cancer Council and the Heart Foundation and the AMA, who have the voice of the media, and unfortunately that's the only story they hear.
Sure.
So we need that, and we're working on that.
Awesome. Well, I know that there are some incredible advocates down in Australia. I know there's a number of them here in chat right now. So I don't know. I guess I'm always encouraged by folks like Adam, like Paul, who's here in chat as well. So I definitely encourage as many folks down there to just be as loud as possible. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we are here at CASAA. We're just a real big megaphone, really, for all of our members, for all of the consumers here in this country. To just be loud, to just finally be heard, to take it from the 80s and the disability rights movement. One of my favorite mantras is "Nothing about us without us," and it rings true in so many areas, whether we're talking about smoking and tobacco policy, or the broader drug policy and drug harm reduction movement as well. We all deserve to have that voice, and to be loud, and to be heard, and to have a seat at the table, and be represented where we often are not. So I'm definitely a fan of a lot of the folks down there in Australia, and I'm just inspired by how loud those people are. And I hope they're able to bring more people into that fold, and that consumer advocacy movement there can just continue to grow, so people there can have voices as well.
And I'm all the more impressed that they're in our chat, knowing after working with Colin what time it is there. Showing up for our show. So you guys, oh my Lord.
Well, I know Adam never sleeps, so I know that's why he's here.
Speaking of sleep, we should probably let Colin go get his finally. So we've already kept him about a half hour.
Absolutely.
See, Colin, I told you, you get talking with us, and it's kind of hard to, you lose track of time.
There's so much to say. No, it's been really helpful, and I hope it helps we need to keep talking about these issues and working out the best way to move forward. But I'm optimistic. There's no way you can put this genie back in the bottle, and even though the FDA and Matt Myers and others are trying, it makes it a lot harder. But it's just such a no-brainer. And I wish you luck in your fight in the US. I mean, it's great to see the progress you've made, but it's just a little bit scary that they're really trying to shut things down. But in the end, I'm sure we will win if we live long enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you so
Colin,
much.
the hero of early morning show.
Okay. You should see me when I'm awake.
He's even more of a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been lovely talking to you, and I wish you all the best in your in your struggle.
We'll definitely have to have you back again. Definitely have to have you back.
Very nice. And don't forget, stop smoking, start vaping.
Yes.
Yep. The link is in the description.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
nice
Colin.
to meet you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye now.
So, two things real quick before we move on. We need to explain the Church of Our Lord and Vapor to Logan. I don't know what this means. But you're welcome to explain it to me. And real quick, you tagged me on Facebook. I'm like the worst person to tag on Facebook ever because I don't get on Facebook. I log into my Facebook once a week to pull this link for this stream to put into our SoundCloud description, and then I run as fast as I possibly can. Yeah, that was a fantastic conversation with Colin. I'm really happy that he was able to climb out of bed and join us for this, and I hope he's able to get some more sleep. But that's your cue, Alex. Are you ready? Is everyone else here ready for a little bit of legislation?
Go for it.
Do the thing? Okay, let's do the thing. Did that play weird for everybody else or just me?
No,
seemed fine to me.
Okay, cool. It's just me then. Carry on. What do we have? What do we have this week? What do we need to keep our eyes and ears on here, Alex?
Well, as I mentioned kind of at the top, a lot of the same stuff here. So in Oregon, just going to keep bringing this up. I owe Washington County an email blast, but repealing the flavor ban is moved to a ballot initiative or referendum. And the election is May 17th. So coming up in a couple of weeks here, folks in Washington County, Oregon are going to have the opportunity to support a referendum that will repeal the flavor ban. It also undoes some other tobacco regulations. I expect something like this to meet some pretty heavy resistance. And there's a limit on what CASAA can do to promote this. So this is just for information purposes. There is a ballot initiative, and Washington County, Oregon folks should be aware of it. Let's see, I have a new fangled setup here, so forgive me while I'm getting my bearings.
I got a new monitor, you guys.
I did. I got a new monitor.
Still figuring it out.
Still getting it. Well, I have the screen up here in front of me, and then I have one of my old monitors down here, which is why I'm looking down. So apologies if that's weird.
I was wondering what you kept looking over at. I knew the dog was gone today.
Yeah, no, it's just my weird new setup. Did I say Colorado? No, I said Hawaii. Hawaii, we're still it's still waiting to see what is happening with. Oh wait, I'm not scrolling on the wrong screen. HB 1570 is still an issue, I believe, and it's moving to a conference committee. So if you are in Hawaii, this is your last chance to get your emails and phone calls in to lawmakers before they make a decision about this. Same update as last week.
Alex, was that somebody posted about Hawaii in the chat much earlier in the show about it passing in the Senate, or do you know what they're talking about, or is this what you're talking about when it moved out of committee? Is it just?
Yeah, so this is the process, and forgive me for not being totally up to snuff on how Hawaii passes legislation. All I know is that there's a bunch of committees involved. So it doesn't appear to be kind of the same thing that we're accustomed to in legislatures on the mainland, which is that, before going to the governor for a signature, it goes to some sort of a floor vote. Joint committees tend to sort of be the decision makers for the entire legislature sometimes. And so that's, as I understand it, perhaps this is what they're talking about. It is passed through that joint committee and is now going to a conference committee, and the conference committee will have the final vote on whether or not this goes on to the governor for their signature. So that's where we're at. It's still waiting for the conference committee, and a decision is expected this coming week. Again, if you are in Hawaii, this is the time. If you haven't already, even if you have sent your messages in, take advantage of our platform and get your messages in.
So Christy says it passed the Senate, but that's the Senate committee it passed.
I believe so, and that was a joint committee. So it was, and we have these in kind of the latest updates and history. It was the Consumer Protection. I forget what the acronyms is, and the Ways and Means Committee. So these two committees together passed it, and then it goes on to the Conference Committee, which I believe is made up of both representatives from House and Senate. And then they will have the kind of the final say. So the word that I got from someone in Hawaii was that we are expecting some sort of decision this week. And I haven't checked back on it to see if they got that done by Friday. It's entirely possible. So I'll double check that. But as far as I know, it's still a good opportunity for people to reach out to your lawmakers. And as Colin mentioned, during the regular podcast, always take these opportunities to contact your lawmakers. And through our system, you're not stuck with what we've written here. We know that your story is your story, and it has meaning. It's impactful. And so, by all means, if you want to delete what we have written here and just share your story with your lawmakers, by all means, please do that. They need to hear, what you've experienced. Excuse me. So that was Hawaii. I am going to. I feel like what else did I say? I said like 4 things at the beginning, right? Or we got Washington, Oregon, Hawaii. Colorado is still, I don't think that we've had, Alaska. Let's see. HB 1064 is still an issue. This is not out of the House yet, but this did receive a bunch of amendments. And I don't know that I have all of them in here, but there were a lot of exemptions for basically everything except for vapor. And why would that be, might you ask? Because the vapor industry and the vapor community doesn't have the money for all of the lobbyists that showed up in Colorado. And so, of course, the hookah people, the cigarette people, the cigar people, the pipe people, they all have their well-heeled lobbyists and were able to get themselves exemptions. And I don't know that, seriously, in spite of the heroic efforts of Amanda Wheeler, again, we are all very much underfunded in this fight. So I'm not entirely sure on what this heavily amended bill is going to look like if it gets out of the House. But all of that to say, the flavor ban in Colorado is still an issue. So just like Hawaii, take the opportunity to contact your lawmakers. Alaska, let's see, because there was a couple of updates for Alaska, and I owe you guys an email.
I was doing Alaska, you're doing Colorado.
There are 2 meetings coming up this week in Alaska for SB 45. And again, this is another bill that has been really amended. What was originally a 75% wholesale tax and a flavor ban has now been reduced to a 45% wholesale tax, and that's on everything, liquid and devices. And so CASAA is still opposed to this. Obviously a step in the right direction, getting rid of the flavor ban, but the extra taxes on vapor products are not really justifiable. And certainly not when all of this other very heavy regulation is going on. So CASAA remains opposed to this extra tax on vapor products, and you should too. So take the opportunity and reach out to your lawmakers in Alaska. These hearings will not be accepting public testimony as far as I know, but making phone calls, sending emails, it's absolutely vital, and your officials need to hear from you. So take this opportunity and get that done. And so the meeting dates are up here on our call to action. You can check all that out, and of course, send your message. The final stop on
real quick, just for the sake of podcast listeners, what are those dates?
They are Wednesday, April 27th. That is at 3:15 p.m. in the House Commerce and Labor Committee. The next one is going to be Friday, April 29th in the House Finance Committee at 1:30 p.m.
Awesome.
Cool. So, as I was saying, the final stop on our whirlwind legislative tour is going to be Connecticut. I don't know that I guess we've talked a bit about Connecticut. We've had this engagement up for a while now. And let's see, yeah, we've had it up since, mid-March. I think that's an update. But this SB 367 has been sort of on the table for probably a year now. And it is getting some movement, but it went through the Committee on Finance, Revenue, and Bonding, and there were some amendments that got adopted. And so what the bill looks like now is no longer a blanket flavor ban, but sales of vapor products are restricted to adult-only establishments, which is what we were talking about with Colin briefly. And I know, and I've seen some tweets about this, whenever we see this sort of compromise in legislation, a lot of our vapor community members feel that this is great. And we've seen, the folks in Canada lobbied in favor of this type of regulation where convenience stores were not allowed to sell vapor products, which absolutely goes against all the principles that we're fighting here. We want these products in front of people who smoke, and they need to see it in the same places where they buy cigarettes. And so I'm not totally clear on the nuances here, whether or not tobacco flavors would be allowed in convenience stores. Certainly that's not good enough either. But CASAA remains opposed to this. We urge you to share your opposition to this. Vapor products need to be sold widely, the same places where cigarettes are sold. And of course, yes, we need them sold in vape shops too. That's where, as Logan was discussing, I have discussed, Kristin has brought, we have all had these experiences of being a part of the community when we go to vape shops. Very, very important. You don't get that experience at a 7-Eleven. As much as we support vaping in vape shops, we also support it in convenience stores. And so that is where the Connecticut bill is now. I don't have word on the next meeting or hearing or where this goes next. It is with the legislative commissioner's office at the moment. So I imagine it's either getting another committee assignment or possibly going to a floor vote. And we're just not done opposing it yet. So if you're in Connecticut, send your messages, let them know that these products need to be on the shelves right next to cigarettes, and so that they can compete head to head and help people switch to something safer.
I mean, you could say it's better than nothing, but you could say the same thing about having a prescription requirement is better than nothing. I mean, at what point are you going to draw the line at what's better than nothing? And like you said, it should be everywhere. And it's getting harder and harder for some vape shops to even stay open and carry stuff. So if it ends up that they limit everything to over 21 stores, but those over 21 stores can't get any product, but the product's getting, people don't understand the product gets to the convenience stores and the gas stations because the tobacco companies have deals with them. And so their stuff get shipped along with it. They've already got the infrastructure. They don't need the mail. And, I look at my local vape shop and they're having a hard time getting any product in. So eventually, okay, so if my state did the same thing and said, oh yeah, over 21 can do it, my vape shop closes. It's not allowed in the convenience store because they can't, because my vape shop can't get stuff. So having this, it's a what do you call it? Concession that ends up being a loss.
These are the things that we talk about when we talk about not giving an inch or whatever, cumulatively, or I guess separately. A lot of these policies for a lot of people look like not a big deal. Okay, that's fine. I can't use this product here. Okay, I can't ship this product this way. Okay, well, that's fine. We'll keep it all in vape shops. But like you said, cumulatively, these policies together can almost act as a de facto ban once they all, work, I don't know, synergetically or whatever that word is. I just made up a word here.
No,
but
you're right.
That's what we're talking about and that's why CASAA sometimes we oppose something that to, the average person walking down the street or whatever, it sounds like perfectly reasonable legislation, but we oppose these things because we know cumulatively that these policies can end up in, like Kristin's saying, in essentially a de facto ban, without an outright ban. Okay, well, if we can't ship the product to vape shops,
That
if
was
the
first.
product's only available in vape shops, if
But then they
once
switched
these
to
things
synthetic.
stack, all these policies stack together, there's nothing left. You don't even have to ban the product because
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. Is the first thing was the mail ban. So now they couldn't get anything shipped to them. My brand, they're in Texas. They stopped shipping. So my shop here couldn't get it. And so they started getting the synthetic nicotine instead because that was still being shipped. Well, now synthetic nicotine is going to start disappearing off shelves. So pretty soon there's just not going to be anything for them to sell. They're just going to be going over to their hemp and Delta stuff and doing all that instead, and if they turn around and said only over 21 can sell these, the closest place I'd be able to find would be an hour away, because I certainly can't order it online anymore. Technically, I mean, I know people who know people, but but you know what I'm saying.
Everybody's got a guy. I know,
right?
A guy.
I know a guy
who knows a guy.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what I'm saying is, so people are like, oh no, the mail ban's not so bad. You can just go to your vape shop, because vape shops did kind of celebrate the fact that online sales could get in trouble. No more online sales. Well, they didn't stop and think, okay, we can't get our stuff shipped to us either. And so, I mean, this whole little at each other, online, open systems, closed systems, vape shops versus that. The goal is to get rid of all of you guys. So you're never going to have a one up if you support somebody else throw anything under the bus, because this is what's happening.
Yeah. And as far as Connecticut goes, I think, folks are starting to see exactly what you've described, Kristin. And I think that it's sort of a few probably loud voices out there that think that this is a good thing for their business. But
yeah, that's going away.
And I think, as part of our job here of spreading information, good information, is letting people know to not get sucked into that sort of, business shark type of thing where I can put my competitors out of business and they'll all come to me. Like that's not where we're at with this. It would be great for companies to compete for customers on an open market at some point, but we're not there anymore, and it's going to be a while until we get back there. So all of that to say, support vaping wherever it's necessary, and that right now is pretty much everywhere. On everywhere cigarettes are sold, there should be a bright, shiny, clean looking and appealing flavored vapor product right next to it, competing head to head.
Don't give in on anything.
And so, yeah, if you're in Connecticut, oppose the bill and protect vaping. And with that, I am absolutely done with the legislative rundown.
Well done, sir. Well done. Well done. And I guess that is also going to conclude this week's CASAA Live. So huge shout out to everybody here. Thank you to everybody in chat. Lots of great questions while we had Colin on today. A lot of great engagement and participation from all of you incredible people here. So thank you. We love good questions. And they were all excellent questions during the stream. So thank you guys. Right out of the gate, join CASAA. If you have not yet joined CASAA, you're doing absolutely everything wrong. Please leave immediately. Head over to CASAA.org. It's absolutely free. We don't fill your inbox with a bunch of spam. So head over, join CASAA. Am I frozen right now?
No.
Yeah, you are.
No?
You're back.
I don't know. My Mac is doing weird things.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
Weird
why
thing.
Is Connecticut back up on the thing?
Because I'm doing a fun thing where I show people how to go join CASAA.
Okay,
maybe, yeah. Either way.
And shop our store.
Whole thing
Our
just
store's
froze,
right
so I
there,
was like,
too.
I'm not going to do the whole spiel if I'm frozen. Anyways, yeah, head over to CASAA.org. Right there, merch. Go check out the merch. Not only is it a great way to support CASAA, but you also get to be a brilliant, beautiful walking billboard for tobacco harm reduction. So go check out all the cool merch that we've got up on
screen
screen
right
right now.
shirts
Danielle
are very
Jones.
soft.
Yeah,
They are
Danielle
nice.
Jones worked real hard on a lot of the new designs. They're super cool, super snazzy. Go pick up some swag. Also, this coming Wednesday, we do have a CASAA space. So check that out. Our CASAA spaces are at 7 p.m. Eastern. So that's 4 p.m. over on the West Coast. Again, just like this here program, you're going to have to do some Google foo for all of the time zones in between and around the rest of the world. For podcast listeners, there will be 2 versions of this available. So if you just tuned into one, hey, guess what? There's another one, a full-length version with Dr. Colin Mendelsohn on and all the great questions and fantastic conversation that we had here today. And then there's also just a real quick shorthand version that you can check out with Alex doing his incredible work with legislation, that super spiffy, fantastic legislative rundown that he does. That's going to do it. Next week, there is no CASAA live next week. We will be taking a week off. Some of us have some things going on. Life, that awful thing that intrudes in this program every now and again, creeps its ugly head in. But we do have some things going on next week, so we won't be here. But like I said, we will be on Twitter on Wednesday for CASAA Spaces. So check that out on Twitter. If you're not following us on Twitter, it's just at CASAA Media. And it's at CASAA Media across the board. So if you're not following on YouTube, do it on YouTube. If you're not following on Instagram, CASAA Media on Instagram, CASAA Media on Twitter, just CASAA Media. Super easy. Follow us all over the place. Literally, like, stalk our social media. It's great, you guys. We appreciate it. Do all the things. That's going to do it for my spiel, I think.
I'm just going to
get all the points. Did I say all the things?
For the most part, yeah, but I'm just going to add that the week, not next week because we're off, but the week after that we have, and you guys, because you stuck around, you got it in and know what's going on now. Clive Bates is going to be on our show all the way from England. So we're going to be killing somebody else's time. We're keeping him up late. We got Colin up early, got him up late. And the week after that, I believe we have Guy Bentley coming as a guest. So we've got some great guests coming up, and stick around. So forgive us for our taking a week off, and you're going to love it when we come back. And don't miss the Twitter Spaces. And join your state Facebook group, darn it.
Yes, that's the thing I forgot. Darn it. Facebook. See, I'm so deeply opposed to Facebook that I just mentally block out that we have so many fantastic. It's the only good thing on Facebook, you guys. That's it. It's just the state groups, our main page, all that stuff. It's literally the only good, wholesome thing that exists on Facebook. So please, no matter what state you're in, we've got them all. Go check it out. Join the groups. I don't get involved directly in any of the Facebook state group stuff. But I know, talking to Kristin and all of them, Kristin, runs basically everything over there, that we get a lot of really great heads ups, particularly from small municipalities that are really hard to track otherwise. We get a lot of heads up stuff from our members and from people in those state groups. So not only is it a way for you to get involved and stay informed, but it's also a great way to participate in all of this that is CASAA. Because remember, you guys, CASAA is not just, Alex with his new nifty monitor or the rest of the board or Kristin. CASAA is all of us together, working together, fighting together, being heard together. And that's the end of my spiel.
I'm going to add. Now I have to add because you were saying that, and Christy said her state Facebook is lame. Hopefully not our CASAA Facebook page, but if it is, we do need some more volunteer moderators for the groups. I have some super mods who are trying to control everything. We've lost a bunch of different people from different states. Life happens, goes back and forth. So if your state Facebook group is lame, become a mod. Message me, whatever, and become a mod, and you can be that person who helps us keep your Facebook page active and help share the CASAA stuff from our page onto your Facebook, onto our CASAA Facebook groups. So we could use your help. So if you feel like your group is lame, step up, and that's one thing that you can do to help us out is participate and get that going active and get people to join it and all that kind of stuff. So that's my spiel.
Now that Kristin and myself have gotten through our spiels, Alex, do you have a spiel?
Your spiel?
I have no spiel. Just everybody, thank you all for coming and listening and watching. And again, thanks to Colin Mendelsohn for getting up early for us.
Absolutely.
Good conversation, and always good to hear what's going on in the other parts of the world. So yeah, that's it.
Good thing. All right.
That's gonna do it, everybody. Be excellent to each other. We hopefully will see you guys on Twitter on Wednesday at 7 p.m. and then the weekends following this coming one. But that's it. We're out of here. Be excellent. Stay safe.